It was just another gray winter morning in Albany, New York. The kind where your breath freezes before it even leaves your lips, and the sky looks like it forgot how to be blue. For Rachel Miller, every morning was a battle. A 32-year-old single mom with a tired soul and an iron will, Rachel had long ago stopped dreaming of comfort. Her days started before sunrise and ended after Ethan, her 4-year-old son, finally drifted off to sleep beside her on their second-hand futon. The heater in their tiny apartment worked when it wanted to. And the fridge? It had more condensation than food. But that day, Rachel had no idea her entire life was about to flip upside down. She had just gotten off her second shift, a double at the diner, and Ethan was with her, wrapped up in layers that still weren't enough for the cold. She was walking fast, half to keep warm, half because the next bus home wouldn't wait. Then it happened. Her boot hit something on the sidewalk. At first, she thought it was trash, maybe a chunk of ice or a balled-up paper bag. But as she bent down, she realized it was leather.
Thick. Worn.
Real. A wallet. She glanced around. The street was quiet, no one rushing back to claim it, no one even looking. She opened it with fingers so cold they could barely feel. Inside was a thick stack of cash. Hundreds. No, thousands. She could barely breathe. Credit cards. An ID. James Whitaker. 61 years old. An address in Schuyler Estates, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city. Rachel's heart pounded. It was like the universe had handed her a lifeline. Rent was overdue. The electric bill was about to get shut off. Ethan had a cough that kept getting worse, and she couldn't afford another visit to the urgent care, let alone the antibiotics they'd prescribe. This money, it could fix everything. Just for a little while. No one saw her pick it up. No cameras. No witnesses. No proof. She could take it. She could finally breathe. But then, a tiny hand tugged at her coat. "Mommy, my fingers hurt," Ethan said softly. Rachel looked down at him. His nose was red, his eyes watery, but he trusted her.
Completely.
And in that one glance, she remembered her mother's words, back when Rachel was just a teenager, standing in a hospital hallway while doctors whispered about no treatment options left. "Do the right thing, Rachel," her mom had said, coughing between each word. "Even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts." Rachel closed the wallet. She had no plan. No clue how this would go. But something in her heart said she couldn't keep it. Not like this. With the last $12 in her checking account, she hailed a cab. It was enough to get her and Ethan halfway across town. When they pulled up in front of a massive stone gate, the cabbie raised an eyebrow. "You sure this is the place?" Rachel didn't answer. She just stared up at the mansion behind the frost-covered hedges. She stepped out slowly, holding Ethan close, the wallet tucked deep inside her coat. Her breath fogged in the air as she pressed the call button by the gate. The voice that came through was deep, cautious, and clearly annoyed. "Yes." Rachel swallowed. "Hi, my name is Rachel. I think I found something that belongs to a James Whitaker." There was silence. Then a buzz. The gates creaked open. Rachel walked slowly toward the front door, every step echoing on the frozen stone path. She could feel eyes watching her. From a window? A camera? She had no idea who this man was. What kind of person he might be. All she knew was that she was returning something she could never afford to lose because it wasn't hers to keep. She raised her hand to knock. But before she could, the door swung open. And there he stood. James Whitaker. Towering. Silver-haired. Expensive-looking sweater. Cold eyes. The kind of man who probably never waited in line or worried about gas prices. He looked at Rachel. Then down at Ethan. Then at the wallet in her hand. And what he said next. Not even in her wildest dreams could she have seen it coming. James Whitaker's eyes narrowed, and for a split second, Rachel thought he might slam the door shut. But instead, he slowly stepped aside and motioned her in. "Come in," he said, his voice like gravel and ice. Rachel hesitated. The foyer alone was bigger than her entire apartment. Marble floors. Chandeliers. Paintings that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Ethan's eyes grew wide as he clung to her hand. Would you like some tea?
James asked almost absently.
I'm fine, thank you, Rachel replied, her voice shaking. He led them into a study with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace crackling in the corner, and a leather couch so plush it looked like it could swallow her whole. James gestured for her to sit. She perched on the edge, unsure whether she was allowed to breathe too loudly in a place like this. Ethan sat beside her, still silent. James stood in front of them, arms crossed. Let's see it. Rachel slowly pulled the wallet from her coat and handed it over. He opened it, checked the contents, then looked up, expression unreadable. You didn't take anything? No, Rachel said firmly. He nodded slowly, as if processing something far beyond the surface of her answer. How did you find me? Your ID, she said. I thought maybe you'd want it back. James stared at her for a long moment. Then, without warning, he said, Most people wouldn't have done that. Rachel shrugged awkwardly. I guess I'm not most people. He nodded again, almost to himself this time. You work at Joe's Diner? She blinked. How did you? I've been there a few times. You serve me coffee. Black. No sugar. You called me sir. And you smiled, even though you looked like you hadn't slept in days. Rachel flushed. I'm sorry if I bothered you. You didn't. He turned, walked over to a drawer, pulled something out, and returned with a thick envelope. This is yours. She shook her head immediately. I don't want a reward. That's not why I returned it. I know, he said, placing the envelope on the table. That's why you deserve it. She looked at the envelope.
It was thick. Too thick.
How much is in there? 5,000. Rachel nearly choked. Sir, I can't take that. James raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because I didn't do this for money. He smiled for the first time. It was small but real. That's exactly what makes you the kind of person who should have it. Rachel looked at Ethan, who stared back at her with a confused little frown. He didn't understand the numbers, but he understood tension. He understood cold nights and empty cabinets. He understood stress. Still, she hesitated. Then James said something that changed everything. Let me tell you a story, he said, walking over to the fireplace and staring into the flames. Rachel didn't move. She could tell this man wasn't one for small talk. If he was telling a story, there was a reason. 30 years ago, James began, I lost everything. I had a business, a family, a future. And one by one, it all crumbled. The business collapsed in the 90s crash. My wife left me. My daughter, she stopped speaking to me. I was sleeping in my car. No heat. No hope. And one day, I found a wallet on a bench at a Greyhound station. He turned and looked straight at Rachel. Inside was over $2,000. More than enough to get me out of that nightmare. But I didn't take it. I tracked down the owner and returned it. He paused. You know what he did? He offered me a job. A small one at first, inventory work. I didn't even have clean shoes. But that one choice, that one return, it changed everything. He walked back to the desk, the firelight flickering on his face. That man was Harold Kingsley. He built half the commercial real estate in the city, and I ended up becoming his partner. Rachel sat frozen, not even blinking. You remind me of me, James said simply. And I don't make that comparison lightly. He placed the envelope in her hands. You returned my wallet, but you also reminded me who I used to be. Rachel's throat tightened. Take it, he said. No strings. Or, if you want strings, how about this? Come work for me. Her head snapped up. What? I need someone I can trust. Someone who knows how to work hard, how to stay honest when no one's watching. Someone like you. She blinked, stunned. But I have no experience. No degree. I don't even know what you do. I'll teach you, he said. That's the easy part. The hard part, integrity, you've already got it. Rachel looked down at Ethan again. For the first time in years, the future didn't look like a locked door. It looked open. Still, her voice trembled. You don't even know me. James smiled again. That's where you're wrong. Rachel sat in stunned silence, the envelope of money heavy in her lap, James Whittaker's words ringing in her ears. A job? From a man she just met? This had to be some kind of test. Or a prank. Or maybe even a trap. But he didn't look like a man playing games. James leaned forward. Look, I know it sounds strange. But life has a weird way of coming full circle. You walked through that door today for a reason. Rachel took a breath. What would the job even be? My assistant. Entry level, yes. But I'll train you myself. You'll learn everything from scheduling meetings to handling real estate investments. You'll shadow me, you'll take notes, you'll probably want to quit at least once a week, but if you stick it out, you'll build a life you didn't think was possible. She stared at him. Why me? James exhaled slowly. Because I've spent years surrounded by people with fancy degrees and zero loyalty. I've hired consultants who charged a fortune but couldn't be trusted to hold a flashlight, let alone carry a vision. You, on the other hand, brought back something most people would have walked off with. And you didn't just return it. You brought it to me personally, in the rain with your son. Rachel opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Her throat tightened. And there's one more thing, he added, tone shifting. What's that? He stood, walked to a locked cabinet, and withdrew a small, weathered photo. It was a girl, maybe 8 or 9. Brown hair in pigtails. Soft eyes. This was my daughter, Lily, he said, voice hushed. Rachel's chest ached. She's beautiful.
She died.
20 years ago. His jaw clenched. Car crash. Her mother was driving. I wasn't there. I'm sorry. James nodded slowly. You're the first person who's stood in this house in years and reminded me of her. Rachel swallowed the lump in her throat. She glanced down at Ethan. He was fiddling with his shoelaces, unaware of the emotional weight hanging in the room. James continued, I built an empire after she died. Tried to fill the hole with work, money, prestige. But none of it worked. The night before you came, I actually thought about selling everything. Retiring. Maybe disappearing. He looked at her again, really looked. But when you showed up, you reminded me of what this all meant. Why I built it in the first place. Rachel's breath caught. You built this for her? I tried to build a world where people like her could thrive. And people like you could rise. She gripped the envelope tighter. You think I could really work here? James leaned in. Rachel, you've already proven more trustworthy in one rainy afternoon than most of my board members have in years. Still, Rachel couldn't shake the doubt. This man was a millionaire, maybe even a billionaire. She was a waitress who could barely make rent. And yet, something inside her shifted. Suddenly, James's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then answered. Yes?
Pause. Now.
His face changed. Anger. Confusion. Then a glance at Rachel. Understood. I'll handle it. He ended the call, placed the phone down, and exhaled sharply. I need to ask you something, he said, tones suddenly urgent. Rachel tensed. What's wrong? That call was from my head of security. They flagged something strange about the wallet. Rachel froze.
What?
There's a recording device inside it. She stared at him. A what? James stood, pulled the wallet back from the table, flipped open a hidden pocket in the lining, and revealed a tiny mic, so small it looked like part of the leather. Rachel's heart raced. I didn't put that there. I believe you, James said immediately. But someone did. He grabbed his phone again. Send me the last 48 hours of data on this mic.
Now.
He turned to Rachel. This isn't about you. It's about whoever tried to plant this. She was trembling now. Why would someone bug your wallet? James stared into space, as if doing mental math on a blackboard only he could see. I've been in negotiations for a high-stakes government contract. Clean energy. Billions involved. The kind of deal people are willing to cheat or kill for. Rachel's eyes widened. You think someone's spying on you? I think someone's trying to destroy me. And you may have just unknowingly walked into the middle of it. Rachel stood, suddenly panicked. I shouldn't be here. My son. James raised a hand gently. You're safe. I promise. But this confirms something I suspected. I have enemies inside my circle. He looked down at the wallet, then back at her. You just became my only trusted witness. Rachel's world spun. She looked at Ethan, now asleep on the sofa, unaware of the high-stakes drama unfolding just feet away. I can't be part of this, she whispered. You're not just anything, James interrupted, his voice steady but firm. You're the only person I can trust right now. Everyone else around me, staff, partners, even family, has something to gain from my downfall. You don't. Rachel backed away slightly. But I have a son. I can't be dragged into something dangerous. James's eyes softened. Which is exactly why I'll protect you. But I need your help too. You could be the key to figuring out who planted that mic. She hesitated, torn between fear and the strange, undeniable sense of responsibility that had landed on her shoulders like a weighted coat. James picked up the wallet again, turning it slowly in his hands. There's something else. The bug wasn't just recording, it was transmitting. Live. Rachel's stomach dropped. So, they heard everything we just said?
Maybe.
Or maybe they shut it off when they knew it was compromised. Either way, someone knows you found it. Which means they may come looking for you. Rachel stared at the door, suddenly imagining shadowy figures behind every curtain and parked car. James saw the fear creep across her face. You won't be alone. My team's already on it. Security will escort you and your son home tonight and watch your place 24/7. No one gets near you unless I say so. But why would anyone go to such lengths over a wallet? James turned toward the window, voice low. Because inside that wallet was something else. A slip of paper with codes. I thought I lost it a week ago. Turns out someone took it, copied it, and planted the bug to listen in on where I might use it. What kind of codes? Rachel asked, now barely able to sit still. James looked over his shoulder. Access codes to a digital vault. Inside, every transaction, every partner, every secret deal I've ever made. If that information got leaked, it wouldn't just ruin me. It would cause a scandal that'd tear through Wall Street like wildfire. Rachel sat back down, stunned. James's tone shifted again, colder, sharper. I don't know who's behind it yet, but I've narrowed it down to 5 people. All of them close. All of them dangerous if cornered. He handed her a small photo of a man in a navy suit. This is Charles Hayden, my CFO. Harvard grad. Brilliant, but desperate lately. His stock options are drying up. Another image. Maya Green. My ex-COO. She left last year, claiming burnout. But 2 weeks ago, she bought a house in Malibu, cash. That's not retirement behavior. Rachel stared at the photos, brain spinning. James continued, flipping through profiles. Then there's Patrick Lorne. PR genius. But he's been asking way too many questions about my security systems. You starting to see the picture? Rachel nodded slowly. You think one of them planted the bug?
Yes.
Or hired someone to do it? Which brings me to you. She looked up. I want you to take this job. Officially. Come in tomorrow as my assistant. No one will suspect you're working with me on this. They'll see you as background noise. A single mom who got lucky. Rachel's mind reeled. You want me to spy on them? I want you to observe. Ask questions. Listen. Report back. That's it. If you hear anything strange, you tell me. I'll handle the rest. Her instinct screamed no. But another part of her, the part that had walked through a storm to return a stranger's wallet, leaned forward. This wasn't about ambition anymore. This was about doing the right thing again. Before she could respond, the front door burst open. 2 men in dark suits entered, badges flashing. Mr. Whitaker?
FBI.
Rachel's heart skipped. FBI? James blinked but stayed calm. Can I help you? One agent stepped forward. We've been investigating an intelligence breach tied to your company. We believe someone attempted to funnel private data through an encrypted mic device. James gestured to the wallet. You mean this device? The agent raised an eyebrow. So you're aware? Just discovered it minutes ago. He pointed to Rachel, brought it to me, found it on the street. Rachel felt the heat of the room shift to her. The agent studied her face. And you are? She stood, voice shaking. Rachel Morgan. I returned the wallet. That's all. The agent nodded, scribbling something in a small notebook. We'll need to take that device. And we'll be interviewing both of you separately. James's jaw tightened, but he handed over the wallet. I want full chain of custody documentation. And I want her word that she's not treated like a suspect. Understood. As the agents turned to leave, Rachel felt James's hand on her shoulder. You still have a choice, he whispered. Walk away now or help me finish this. She looked at her sleeping son again, and then slowly she nodded. I'm in. Rachel stared at the mirror in the guest bathroom of James Whittaker's penthouse, splashing cold water on her face. The adrenaline hadn't worn off. Not even close. Somewhere between finding that wallet and staring down FBI agents, her life had become unrecognizable. But in a strange, unsettling way, it also felt right. The next morning, she showed up to Whittaker Enterprises headquarters in a plain blouse and blazer borrowed from a friend. To everyone around, she was just the new assistant. Invisible. Safe. Exactly the role James needed her to play. Her cubicle was nestled near the executive's wing. From there, she heard it all: office gossip, private calls, footsteps that stopped just before they should have. It didn't take long for her to realize James had been right. Something was off. Deeply off. Patrick Lorne, the PR wizard, was pacing too often, whispering into his phone with the blinds closed. Maya Green stopped by once, unannounced, asking strange, circuitous questions like she was fishing for something. And Charles Hayden? He stared at Rachel a beat too long each time she passed. By Friday, Rachel had compiled everything: times, phrases, glances, even suspicious USB swaps. She handed the folder to James. He reviewed the document slowly, then looked up at her with something between admiration and relief. You just did more in 4 days than my entire security team has done in 4 months. Rachel smiled, though nerves still twisted in her gut. What happens now? James leaned back, eyes cold and focused. Now I let the feds take it from here. Quietly. I don't want headlines, I want resolution. Justice, not chaos. And he kept his promise. 2 weeks later, 3 arrests were made in private: embezzlement, corporate espionage, conspiracy to defraud. But Rachel's name was never leaked. She was protected, shielded. More than that, she was rewarded. James offered her a permanent position not just as an assistant, but as head of internal ethics. Her job? To make sure nothing like this ever happened again. She almost turned it down. Until one night, Ethan looked up at her and said, "Mom, are you a hero now?" She froze, breath catching. Rachel knelt beside him and hugged him close. "No, sweetie. I just did the right thing." But maybe, just maybe, those two things were the same. And now a question for you, the viewer. What would you have done if you found that wallet? Would you have walked away? Would you have returned it and left? Or would you have followed the story, even when it got dangerous? Let us know in the comments. Your answer might reveal more about you than you think. And if this story gripped you, if you felt the tension, the mystery, the humanity, then don't scroll away without hitting like, subscribe, and share with someone who loves a good twist. Because sometimes doing the right thing leads to the most unexpected places.